Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan from Rocks and Stocks News. We got another of our reports from interviews of executives of junior and developer mining companies. One of our most busy guests in 2022 was i-80 Gold. Just had a remarkable year of news that's setting the company up for a tremendous 2023. Ewan, thanks a lot for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Al. It's been a good year talking with you, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, Ewan, I was thinking when I was preparing for this show that I know in my career I've never seen a company have two world-class gold projects that are simultaneously being developed and explored.
Yeah, it's been kind of remarkable, the success we've had since we started trading about 18, 20 months ago, discovering the South Pacific zone at Granite Creek. That's now we're driving the decline down with the expectation to start drilling it from underground in the new year. And now the success we've had at Ruby Hill has just been, as I said before on your show, I think the best of my career. The expansion drilling we did in the Ruby Deeps deposit was hugely positive with, big widths, big grades. And then in the last half of this year, we've now announced 3 new discoveries of base metal and CRD type mineralization. The assay lab just delivered the last Christmas present that we announced this morning, which was confirming that right now we're calling the South Blackjack target has significant good big widths, high grade zinc mineralization that's we expect is really going to add to our overall resources on the property.
Well, you started the year out with Granite Creek being your number one project, and that's a hell of a project. You got probably over 600 meters of strike length between the OG and the South Pacific. It's wide open as you move to the north. You're in the same kind of rock package and the same structure as a 25 million ounce deposit to the north of you. You got a tremendous runway to keep on following that to the north and at depth.
Yeah, definitely. Granite Creek was the success. For us, had all the excitement in the first half of the year. We discovered it in 2021 and had I think when we were below 250 meters in our drilling into that zone, we had 100% hit ratio in our drilling, which was pretty remarkable. We defined that zone over a strike length of about 600 meters, a dip length of about 250 meters. And our deepest hole was in terms of grams times meter, was our best hole of the program. So the deposit remains wide open at depth and really that was the number one project for us. And then we started drilling out the Ruby Deeps deposit. We had, intercepts to over 70 meters, and that would be true width of high grade mineralization. So it moved into sort of a close second. And then about mid-year, we decided that we worked in the early part of the year on some conceptual exploration. We knew we wanted to find so much gold to move forward to economic studies, which we're completing right now on the Ruby Deeps deposit. And then we wanted to move into the exploration mode a bit. And one of our primary targets, or 2 of our primary targets, are actually base metal targets. So there's a CRD target that we call the Hilltop that was very successful. And right now we're drilling the Blackjack deposit, which is a previously discovered zone, a skarn type deposit. So those were really the base metal, or the polymetallic mineralization, was something that we purposefully chose to test, but in the second half of the year. And the success we're having at those targets has easily moved Ruby Hill into becoming our flagship project. And today's news was just another, I think we've announced less than 10 holes from drilling so far in the Hilltop corridor, and we've made 3 new discoveries in those first dozen holes. So pretty remarkable. Really suggests that we think we're on to something very special, is a good way to put it, at that Hilltop area. And in the new year, we will definitely be ramping up drilling. I'm going to be talking to Tyler, our senior geo, this afternoon about how many drills can we get to be on that property in January, because it is, I think we really have the tiger by the tail, and 2023 is going to be a big year for our company.
Well, you described it as special, and I think the market agrees with you, and especially after you hit that 10-meter intersection of 60 grams of gold and 900 grams of silver, the stock blasted off. And it's gone through some pretty important technical indicators. Your 50-day has moved through your 200-day. That's your classic golden cross. And what usually happens with golden crosses is the 50-day stays above the 200-day and they trend upwards, which means it's suggestive of the stock going much higher. And, when you hit something like you did at that CRD, high grade zinc, lead, silver, and a high grade kicker of gold, people would be happy with the silver or the gold alone, let alone it's in a CRD that has an extreme high grade gold overprint.
I think the base metals are pretty much as high or maybe higher than any operating base metal mine in the world. So it could be economic on all three fronts, and that's why we're putting so much effort into it in the first half of the year, and it has moved up, because on a per ton basis, especially that upper hilltop zone that we're drilling out right now, has every hole. We've announced 5 holes so far from our drill program into that discovery, and the average metal grade of the intercepts we've announced has been between $1,000 a ton to $5,000 a ton. So
Wow.
significantly higher grade than our gold deposit sitting right beside it. So when you hit that type of mineralization, you don't say, well, it's got a lot of base metals in it. We're not a base metal company. It's at the end of the day, we want to build a profitable mining operation, and the most profit you'll make is by mining the highest grade. So if that happens to be a polymetallic deposit or a base metal deposit, so be it. It's exciting times. I'm
Well, they
pretty
say
happy going
that
into year end.
a lot of people say in the mining business that grade is king, and I really believe that margin is king. You need to look no further than Kirkland Lake Gold, which was one of the best performing gold stocks because it had the highest margins and kicked off tremendous free cash flow and ultimately got them bought out. Margin is king. And looks like that CRD and your gold operations are going to be very high margin projects, which, gets a premium in the business. So who cares where that money comes from?
Yeah, exactly. And if you look at all the big gold producers, Barrick has significant copper production in addition to gold. Newmont has base metals as well in their production. Agnico Eagle, their LaRonde, which has always been their flagship operation, is really a zinc mine with a gold credit. And they just bought into the San Nicolas, which is a base metal project with Teck down in Mexico. So all of
It's
the
only
major...
about 30 miles from my house, Ewan.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
all of the major gold producers do have some diversification to base metals. They just don't talk about it too much. But when I look at building a company, as you said, its margin is king. And while we're called i-80 Gold because we acquired solely gold projects, as Premier was a gold company. If you look at the biggest mining companies in the world, the biggest actual mining companies, Barrick and Newmont aren't them. It's Rio Tinto, Glencore, Teck, these major BHP, the biggest mining companies in the world are actually, and they all produce gold, mainly as a byproduct, but the largest companies in the world are all diversified producers. So I think our company, as we grow in the future, are not going to be gold agnostic. It's not just, if it's not gold, we're not going to look at it. Is how do we build what we think will be the best new growing producer, and that production can be a gold or base metals or anything that investors will find in the market. I think that's our target with this company.
Might have to change your name to high margin mining.
Yeah, or i-80 metals or something like that.
There you go. There you go. Well, when it does come to the gold projects, if you stripped out the CRD and just looked at the Ruby Hill, you've got that Ruby Deeps, which is thick and high grade. Then right above it, you have the 426 zone, and that starts right at the bottom of a pit. So to look at this in a Lassonde curve kind of development discount window, you've got easy access to your high grade gold, and 426 has more oxide than you anticipated.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be looking at, we're assessing different options at how we deal with the oxide mineralization. Usually people are saying, how do we deal with the sulfide refractory stuff? Whereas we're looking at it going, well, how do we deal with the oxide mineralization? Where are we going to process it? So that's some solutions we have to come up with over the next couple of months, is how best to deal with the oxide mineralization that we ultimately expect to mine from the upper parts of Ruby Hill. Do we start up the Ruby Hill plant, or do we perhaps try to find a nearby mill that we can get third-party processing of that material? We'll definitely be looking at our various options we have to do that, to process that material. So we're definitely going to be making, we've got a lot of work to do to build out our production over the next several years. We've never said next year we're going to be a major producer. It's a stage building approach, and like most mining companies, at some point we'd like to take on some lower cost of capital bank debt, and to do that we need to move our projects to feasibility. To bring the South Pacific zone at Granite Creek to full feasibility, we need to drill it out, and we expect to start that underground drill program to fully delineate what we've discovered so far in the South Pacific zone, to move that to full feasibility. We're driving the decline rate now at the Cove project, with the intent of doing a major drill program starting next year, and that would move that project to full feasibility. And we're currently going through the permitting process at Ruby Hill to put in the decline. We hope to be in a position to start driving that mid next year, to complete a definition drill program again from underground. So all three projects will be underground drilling to bring to full feasibility. And on the back of that would be the plan to restart the autoclave, and everything builds up from there. But in the interim, we're doing the mining at Granite Creek that's being processed by Nevada Gold Mines, or will be once we get enough of the refractory material there. We're also hitting oxide, so we're processing that at our own facility at Lone Tree right now. And when we get into the upper parts of the 426 zone at Ruby Deeps at Ruby Hill, we would expect at that point to have a solution, either third-party mill it or perhaps restart our facility. So the production will be building over the next couple of years, but it's really not till we get the autoclave running that the production really increases to the point we hope to be in a position that we could start giving back to shareholders.
Wow. Yeah, and that would bring, with that free cash flow, you could look at stock buybacks, you could look at dividends, you could look at acquisitions. That's a wonderful position to be in.
Yeah, we have that plus 1 gram heap leach project at Granite Creek as well. Open pit heap leach project that is not in our near-term plans, just because we've got a lot on our plate to get the autoclave going, but permitting that and getting that built, we hope to build that operation with cash flow rather than having to go for more debt or other instruments. So that project is a future growth opportunity for us. And then we've got the biggest deposit in our portfolio is actually Mineral Point at Ruby Hill. And it's a large oxide open pit. It's actually about 5 million ounces, more than 5 million on a gold equivalent. And that's not even in our 5-year plan. That's sort of in our 5 to 10-year plan. We'd like to build that out. And that would make us what would be considered a mid-tier producer. And and easily the second biggest producer in the United States.
Wow. And even when you take, for example, Granite Creek and you run a feasibility study on it, that will still be only a snapshot in time, because you can keep on walking this towards that to the north and at depth.
Yeah, definitely. Ruby Hill along strike is completely open as well. So we can expand along strike there. We think we've probably got at least 10 years of mining material at Granite Creek that we've defined so far with the addition of the South Pacific Zone. And but it's wide open as well. So I fully expect both of those operations will ultimately have mine lives in measured in decades, not just in 10 years. So
Wow.
they're long-lived assets, and we're advancing them as we go. The real growth opportunity I see for us to really build up our production is actually going to be through the future development of Blackjack and the Hilltop zones.
Right.
And that will be bringing in diversification of metals for us with the addition of base metals. And if these grades keep up, hopefully those look like the mines that may be the highest margin in our portfolio. So I'm not saying we're going to completely stop what we're doing in gold because this is so good, but we definitely have to rethink some of the growth we're doing
You have some
as
nice
these things get bigger
problems.
and bigger.
You have some nice problems that
Yeah, it's maybe internally it's with me, it's a little confusion. Do we keep going gung-ho this way, or we really need to understand the opportunity of these new discoveries as quickly as we can, and that's why it's critical we get additional drills going there as soon as possible, because the upper Hilltop zone, the one that's got metal values of in excess of $1,000 a ton, it is right on the edge of the pit. So conceivably, if it's big enough to mine it, we may just do a layback on the southwest side of the pit, and it wouldn't be a major layback, and we could be mining some of the highest grade material you'll find anywhere on the planet.
wow, that's incredible. So some of the things we can look forward to in 2023, Ewan, you still can increase your resource. What did you start the year out with in resources of gold
We have
globally?
about 6.5 million measured and indicated gold ounces, and we've got over 8 million ounces inferred. So on a global basis, over 14.5 million ounces of gold resources. And we've also completed a drill program at Buffalo Mountain. So we are looking to bring the Buffalo Mountain deposit into resource. So there'll be Buffalo Mountain will be a new resource. We're drilling the Blackjack skarn deposit as right now. Well, we stopped for Christmas, but we're drilling it to bring it to 43-101. And we're going to be doing revised resources for both Granite Creek and Ruby Hill, with where we drilled approximately 70,000 meters of surface and underground drilling. So on a gold equivalent basis, we're expecting a pretty major increase in our resource base. And all of those resources will be released in the first half of 2023.
And then as you get into the start, January, you're going to be drilling more at the CRD, more at Blackjack. Shortly thereafter, it sounds like Ruby Deep's 426, Granite Creek. You're just going to have more and more of this drilling and development work.
Yeah, there's actually quite a few holes completed into both the lower and upper Hilltop discoveries that we've completed, and the assays we expect will be coming in over the Christmas holidays and into the early new year. So I'm expecting that's going to make for a pretty interesting update early in the new year as we publish a lot of the follow-up results in those two new discoveries. Visually, the drilling's gone very, very well. The deposits are completely open for expansion as we've ended the year. And we start up, we'll be stepping out more, and And with the additional drills, I think there'll be a lot of excitement in those discoveries here in the new year.
Well, I started out by saying you had a remarkable 2022 that's setting you up for a spectacular 2023. And after this conversation, I'm more sure of that than I was at the start of the show.
Yeah, well, it's been good meeting with you during the year frequently, and I look forward in 2023 talking to you, and hopefully your guests can continue to follow how our story evolves.
Well, I want to thank you on behalf of our the viewers that you're very kind to be a sponsor of my show, and also to make it a point to come on here and dig deeper into the news releases as they're made. You know, a lot of commentators, they commentate about news well after it's news. You shine light on the news shortly after it's news. So I know that from comments that I get from people, we really appreciate that, Ewan, and here's to a spectacular 2023.
Yeah, and I wish you and your subscribers a Merry Christmas and all the best in 23.
Same to you and your team, Ewan, and your family and all your loved ones.
Thank you.
I'm going to close it off. You can hang around if you want. I'm always trying to figure out valuations, potential relative to the current valuation. And I would make the case that i-80 Gold is undervalued just for their mining infrastructure alone. Then you look at the valuation relative to the assets that they had at the beginning of the year, and I think it's easy to make a case that it's undervalued based on those where they started the year. But then 2022 was such a spectacular year, starting out with Granite Creek. It's right beside a 25 million ounce deposit in the same kind of rocks, the same structural story. They keep making it bigger and bigger. They found the OG zone, then they expanded into South Pacific. South Pacific, as you go deeper, gets higher grade, and it's open as you go towards a 25 million ounce deposit. They started out the year with that being their number one project, but Ruby Deeps has now vaulted itself into a number one category because of the success at Ruby Deeps, finding thick intersections of high grade. Then the 426 zone above that, which is right underneath the pit to the west. And to the south, it's even getting better. They've got this CRD that it's got tremendously high valuations of in situ rock values, and it just keeps getting bigger and better. Now they've got a skarn on top, which is your classic mineralizing system, skarn followed by a CRD, and they even got evidence that maybe there's a porphyry hiding underneath there with their geophysics, and that's your continuum of how these things are evolve. All of these things combined, I've said before and I'll say it again, I see this company as being a young Barrick, and in reality, I don't think Barrick was at this stage till they were well into their history. So for investors that want access to a gold company with a tremendous margins on base metals as well, i-80 Gold is for you. As always, do your homework, speak with your financial advisors. And before the end of the year, I'm going to do what I've always said investors should do. Just go look at the highlights of the news releases that i-80 has put out this year, and it tells you the story. I couldn't go into it today because I'd have to go through headlines of about 25 news releases. That's on average one great news release every 2 weeks. So do that homework. I'll help you out with that before the end of the year. On that note, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.